time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Your final word in sports every night across the great state of South Carolina. Glad to have you with us. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes off for another night. Brian Leonard is here once again. Taking your phone calls, putting you in touch with us. You can reach us at 800-956-7266. Tonight, we really now pretty much have totally turned the corner from football into basketball.
We stretched it out about as long as we could.
Well,
really
thank you,
did.
Clemson. Thank
really
you, Clemson,
did.
for extending the season as long as they could, and everything else that followed after the national championship game, which is now 8 days behind us. So I think it's really now time to start diagnosing this basketball season. We're seeing a lot of good things happen around the state. We're seeing some surprising things happen around the state. I would say the good so far would be, let's start with Wofford. What a year they're having.
Yes.
They showed us early that they're good, and they're continuing to play good ball. And then Furman. And you know what Saturday is?
I was going to say, that is the biggest basketball game in the state this season coming up on Saturday.
Yeah.
And
sold out.
And I'm so sad I'm not going to be there.
Sold out.
You can go.
You
should go.
You know what? Anyway, it's sold out.
I would go if I was
here. I think I've got plans this weekend. I think that you don't know this because you don't know me that well.
Yes.
But this will shock you. I really wasn't put on this earth to be one of America's premier sportscasters.
Yeah, I know. You were put on this earth to play golf. I understand.
Would you let me just finish what I was put on this earth to do?
Uh-huh.
I was put on this earth to play golf. Yes. So I may be doing that. The weather's turning nice later in the week.
Not the way the weather's been recently.
No, it's going to get nicer as the week moves on. It's supposed to hit in the 60s.
Just as I get out of town.
Where are you going?
I'm going to New Orleans this weekend.
Oh, getting ahead of the national championship game for next year?
You know, I'm part of the
advanced team,
the survey team for Clemson for next year. They want to make sure that.
So you're convinced Clemson will be in it. Now here we are talking football again. So you're convinced Clemson will be in it next year.
There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah. Hard to pick against them, except they've got to rebuild the defense a little bit.
Yeah, they have to replace.
Of course, they got good news last night on two fronts.
They have to replace 7 starters. That's not easy to do. But, I mean, yes, they did get good news with Muse coming back. Simmons is coming back. Kayvon Wallace is coming back. We found out earlier. And really, those are the 3 guys who were kind of on the fence that we were thinking about whether or not they were going to stay or not. Last night was the deadline. But as far as everything else, yes, you got to replace 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and Trayvon Mullen in the secondary. It's a tall task, but I think they've got the right guys coming back to kind of make a run next year, and the fact that they are so stacked at the position of defensive line. They're stacked at the safety position now. The one position I'm worried about is corner, just because opposite the one corner position, you're really not looking at much outside of A.J. Terrell. I mean, you have Goodrich,
well, they
McMichael.
Do like the 2 young guys, yeah.
Goodrich and McMichael, but from the standpoint of where they're at, you know the way this game works, Corn. It's all about the offense.
And they are loaded on offense. Okay, we'll talk more football, of course, and talk about Clemson and South Carolina. We were trying to talk a little basketball.
Yes.
As far as the good, you throw South Carolina into the good category.
Absolutely.
A 3-0 start in the SEC. So the Gamecocks are tied with Ole Miss and Tennessee at 3-0 atop the SEC at this point. Now, you're thinking, okay, they should be 4-0 when they go to Vanderbilt tomorrow night and play an 0-3 Vanderbilt team, 0-3 in the league. But as Frank Martin said earlier this week, Vandy is much better than its record indicates, and they play a very fast style of basketball. This should be a pretty exciting game because the Gamecocks like to play fast, and so does Vandy.
Should be a breakneck pace type game for them. The thing about Vandy, their losses have come to Kent State, who's 185 in the Ken Palm, NC State, and Kansas State in the non-league season, and then their 3 losses to Ole Miss, Georgia, and Kentucky. Those are not necessarily what I would call bad losses. They don't run it nearly as fast as South Carolina does, but They do have very, very good offensive efficiency. They put up a lot of points, and I'm very, very curious to see just exactly how they defend the three, because they defend the three very, very well. South Carolina's had its up and downs with shooting the three, but the one thing that Vanderbilt does do is they go inside a lot. They are not necessarily good themselves shooting the three, so it's a contrast in styles. And again, South Carolina has got some momentum now after the victory over Missouri and the 2 victories over Florida and Mississippi State. This would be a very good win for them to try and, again, propel them forward, because the next 2 that they have on the road at LSU and then home Auburn, you're looking at a situation where you might have to split one of those 2 to feel good about where you are.
Yeah, and Martin said, look out for Saban Lee, point guard. He's averaging about 3.6 assists per game. He is the son of former Florida State, I think it was, an NFL running back, Amp Lee. And he says he is just very, very fast, really pushes the tempo. The whole team at Vanderbilt is fast. And, of course, going to get a chance to see Aaron Neesmith, the product of Porter Goud, a guy that South Carolina recruited, and he is starting to play a lot more and play well for Vandy.
Should be an interesting matchup inside, too, as well, with Silva going up against Simi Shittu. Got it. I got it. Simi Shittu, the 6'10" freshman.
I couldn't get through that the first time. You know, South Carolina recruited him a little bit.
Where I was going with that.
Couldn't get through it the first time. And we tried to say it.
And he's a part of the Vanderbilt class and part of that revamped squad under Bryce Drew. And you wonder, again, that is a very, very hard place. I would say Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech on South Carolina and Clemson schedules respectively are the 2 places that are probably hardest to get players and hardest to recruit in men's college basketball, but also 2 teams that conversely give these 2 teams, South Carolina and Clemson, fits, and they both play them this Wednesday.
The not so good, of course, Clemson's 0-3 start in the ACC. Maybe give the Tigers a bit of a pass because of the competition they have played. We'll see how they do tomorrow night at 9 o'clock against Georgia Tech. Coastal Carolina off to a 1-3 start in their league, and they've lost a couple of close games at home, games that you'd like to win. Citadel, which looked good early on, has struggled once getting into Southern Conference play. Would say those are some disappointments in the state thus far. Another positive, though, Winthrop looking good in the Big South. Charleston Southern certainly competitive. Don't know if they're going to be able to muster enough to win their league, but they're a competitive team.
You mentioned Clemson, the bad. You know, Ken Pom does. I hate to reference Ken Pom again, but they have
he's good.
They have a reference called luck. They're one of the bottom teams when it comes to luck in the country. Furman, conversely, was actually one of the top teams.
How do you measure luck?
It's about the way perceived outcomes come and how you grade against perceived outcomes. And they have basically in 50-50 opportunities this season have come out on the losing end. Games like Creighton, Nebraska, and even Mississippi State, when the fact that they didn't have Marquise Reed there really put them behind the 8 ball. Even a game like Syracuse is a game where they were projected to at least lose closer or win in that contest, and they did not come out on the winning end. They're 10-6 when their projected victories standpoint could be closer to around 12-4, with, again, games like Duke and Virginia that really front loads their schedule. Coming up here, you have no slouches in this ACC because you have Georgia Tech, then you have Florida State after the weekend bye, and then NC State, who always plays them tough, before you even get to Pittsburgh, who it looks a lot more improved than they have been recently. Last
night, South Carolina State won at Morgan State, so a good win for the Bulldogs. Tonight in the SEC, of course, the SEC always gets their week started early. So on Tuesday night tonight, you have got Kentucky. Wrong. You have got Arkansas at Tennessee. That'll tip at 7. Florida at Mississippi State. That'll tip at 7. Kentucky will be at Georgia tonight. That'll tip at 7. LSU will be at Ole Miss tonight. That'll tip at 9.
And a big one in the ACC tonight, Corn. Virginia and Virginia Tech meeting as top 10 teams for the first time in a long time for both.
Yeah, you got NC State at Wake Forest as well, and you've got Notre Dame at North Carolina. Of course, last night, Duke lost at home, had that big early lead on Syracuse. What a job Jim Boeheim is doing. Hold that team together under those circumstances. Zion Williamson went off big again for the Blue Devils, but they lost a key member of their team that's going to be felt by them as they move on through this ACC schedule.
Should be felt by them, but it's not a surprise that Syracuse gets that victory, because if there's any coach that can match which in this conference with Mike Krzyzewski, it's Jim Boeheim.
All right, 800-956-7266 is our phone number here on Sports Talk. We're going to open up your phone lines, hear what you have to say, football, basketball, and beyond. Tonight, we will hear from Clemson coach Brad Brownell previewing the Tigers game tomorrow night, and Frank Martin previewing the Gamecocks game tomorrow night. All that to come, plus a good dose of recruiting. We'll be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We were talking about the injury at Duke. Trey Jones, sprained AC joint. He is at least gone for the foreseeable future for Duke, though they have plenty to be able to at least put in his place with R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson, Cam Reddish, and some of these other guys that they have as ancillary players. But it'd be interesting to see how Duke handles that coming forward. Be interesting to see, again, with South Carolina still wondering about the Marion Hobby situation at defensive line coach. And this is a situation, Colin, where, again, going back to what we talked about with Thomas Brown, look, putting him on staff makes a hell of a lot of sense. It's not that you don't want Marion Hobby. It's, does Marion Hobby want you?
Yeah, and what other offers does he have? Does he want to stay in the NFL if he has some offers? Does he want to get back into college coaching? I would think, if he wanted to get back into college coaching and South Carolina has made him a competitive offer, this would be a hard place to say no to, because the new things that are happening with the new building and a chance to take over what I think is going to be a pretty good, at least deep, defensive front. I mean,
Right.
Whoever coaches the defensive front, and of course, we're all assuming, this is the funny thing. I hate these kind of situations because the information has been generated from unidentified sources,
Correct,
from websites saying that Lance Thompson is not being retained, which by all indications, it's true, because you go to Lance Thompson's Twitter page.
been largely absent.
Yeah, he hasn't tweeted anything since back around the bowl game time, unless he's done something recently.
Still on the staff directory at South Carolina, so he's still earning a paycheck.
So this is a very
awkward. It's very awkward
situation, the way this is being. I don't like talking about coaches being replaced until they're actually officially announced as being replaced, which on the one hand, are you trying to do him a favor as a head coach to allow him to find a job before you say that you fired him? Are you trying to do him a favor?
But here's the thing. Last year we had this with Kurt Roper, did we not? And we had this ambiguity when it came to his position on the staff. And instead of letting him swing in the wind, so to speak, finally we got a statement before the bowl game that said, you know what? He's not going to be with us going forward. And you know what? It comes to a point where there's being a friend and being a good, soldier and all that kind of thing. And whether just there's that, and then there's just saying, you know what, this has become awkward and almost untenable. We just have to say, you know what, we're not going to be with him going forward. And it's bad for him, but it also looks bad for the school, because the silence from South Carolina right now on this is galling and really, I would say, almost undeserving. And unless something comes out, and there have been some unsubstantiated rumors about Lance and his time here, unless something comes out and is made to the public and the public eye that he did something nefarious or bad, that remains to be seen. They don't want to put out there. That remains to be seen.
Just seems to me, if you're going to hire Marion Hobby, and there's nothing wrong with hiring Marion Hobby.
No.
You could hire Brad Lawing, who's just right down the road and available for you right now, and could go to work tomorrow and get right into his recruiting territory, immediate welcoming back by the coaches. And now Marion Hobby would be the same way, because he coached at Clemson on 2 different stints and is well known by the coaches here and in his particular recruiting areas. But
love some Brad Hobby.
I don't know what direction Will Muschamp is looking to go with this position, as far as the personality, the makeup of his staff. Does he want another minority hire on his staff? There's a lot of things that go into it beyond just the abilities of the coach. How much is it going to cost? What's the minority makeup of your staff? What are you trying to achieve, et cetera, et cetera? So
I don't think it's necessarily a minority thing.
I'm just throwing it out there. That's something that has to be considered, or is always considered, when it comes to filling jobs, though.
He's got 2 minority coordinators. He's got plenty of that representation on his staff. Again, I don't think that's an issue. I think the issue is, and here's the other part. Here's my other concern with hiring Marion. That is the same concern with hiring Lance or keeping Lance on, is that these are guys who are what you would call people who have a lot of bumper stickers on their luggage, if you know what I mean. They are well traveled. They go a lot of different places. They don't stay long.
But tell me an assistant coach that really doesn't. I mean, assistant coaches, they live out of their suitcase. They live in apartments. They don't buy green bananas, because they're not going to be around very long for the most part, a year or 2. If you can, which makes the Clemson story even more interesting, the way they've kept their group together.
They've got enough guys there who have stayed there for a while.
But you got to remember, you look at Clemson's staff. Jeff Scott's a graduate. Tony Elliott's a graduate.
Robbie Caldwell.
Danny Pearman's a graduate. Robbie's not a graduate.
He went to Furman, yeah.
But he's close enough, and he's a South Carolina guy. Now, on the defensive side, of course, they've had some turnover on their defensive line because Dan Brooks retired and because Hobby lost. But the 2 guys that they brought in look like they're going to be there for some time. Though I did see a post on the internet last night. Somebody mentioned that they had read from an Alabama site that Todd Bates was being interviewed at Alabama, was looking at Alabama. But then again, I saw a picture of him today with Brent Venables going to recruit up in Maryland. So
that's cheeky by them.
don't think that's the case at all. All right, 800-956-7266 is our phone number.
You want to update the poll question?
Oh, yeah, the poll question has been very hot on Sports Talk, on our Twitter at SportsTalkSC, on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. Our poll question is, it's primarily geared to Gamecock fans, though I'm sure some Clemson fans have chimed in.
Oh, they have chimed in.
Just to have fun. How should University of South Carolina athletic teams be identified? We're closing in on 3,000 votes on this poll question. And to this point, surprisingly to me, 43% want the full name, South Carolina.
I think it should be that on first reference.
30% USC, 14% U of SC, only 13% say Carolina.
Well, again, I've told you you mentioned the right thing, the fact that winning cures all ills when it comes to that, but they are at least trying to do a branding thing. And I hate to bring the history from this perspective into the fold here, but Missouri did something very, very similar where they changed all of their stuff that said Missouri to Mizzou.
Mm-hmm.
They changed the basketball floor. They changed the outfield wall, their baseball stadium, anything. The football end zones were changed to Mizzou.
They went uniform.
They went just straight up to Mizzou. And that this is, I think, what South Carolina is trying to do.
Well, example.
Get their own thing.
Bad example. Go back to the bowl game and look. You had on the football helmet, you had the block C with the Gamecock, which is my preferred emblem.
Right.
On Muschamp's shirt, he was wearing the Carolina script,
which he loves.
On other coaches' shirts, they had the block C. No uniformity among the coaching staff and the team that particular day. It was like everybody chose their own source of wear, and there's got to be one thing. You got to find something that is best for the school and best for the branding and that the fans will like and stick with it.
I can't.
Let me read a few of these comments.
I can't see Muschamp walking around with that U of SC logo on his chest.
This comes from 554 and 3 straight. How about Clemson's little brother?
Us sorry chickens. That's one of my favorites.
Joseph Gibson. I'm still partial to USC Junior myself. Jeff Patrick. USC's in California. Carolina's in Chapel Hill. The state is South Carolina. Leaves only one choice left. Let's see here. From Joel, USUC. If you spell that, if you read that out, you know what it means.
Right.
A lot of Clemson people opining here. Chris Jordan, SCAR, S-C-A-R. JGW the second. How about the U of SC?
That's not good.
Yeah. Anyway, some of the responses. Let's jump to the phones very quickly. 800-956-7266. Headed first to Stan, the Tiger Man. And if we cut you short, we'll carry you over to the next segment. Mr. Stan, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. I didn't think y'all would ever give me a chance. I tried to get on last Thursday, and Martin come on with the basketball thing. I got a bunch I want to hit you with, Phil.
Okay, go ahead.
The thing a while back, about 2 or 3 years ago, you come up with something about the cockpit, and I got the brainstorming the other night, and I think, the Tigers has got Death Valley and the Eye of Tiger and everything. I think they ought to call them as a props to them to help them maybe, and you rub shoulders with Tanner up there, you might get it through. South Carolina Fighting Gamecocks. And they ought to draw up there and say, welcome to the cockpit. Now, how do you think that sounds? I'll let you elaborate on that. The other thing I wanted to hit, I don't know if they ever give the Golden Apple Award for a talk show host, but I think you deserve one, man. They do all the teachers and everything. That's number 2. I want to give you your props.
All right, hang on, Stan. We'll come back to you, and we'll address your initial comment after the break.
Sports Talks, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. I do want to get into what we learned from the Charleston Post and Courier as Clemson continues its investigation to
which is basically nothing.
Osterine. Well, I want to talk about why we know nothing about that in just a moment.
Well, tomorrow night we're going to be up at Clemson leading up to the basketball game, and right now we're working on a time with Dan Radakovich. If we can get it worked out from his standpoint on the time, we'll have him on with us.
I don't want to spoil all my thoughts on this because I know we wanted to get back to Stan.
Well, Stan, let's go back to Stan the Tiger Man. To answer your question, was the first thing that you asked us about.
The cockpit
was related to, South Carolina and what to call them and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, they go by, Fighting Gamecocks, that's part of their legend. The cockpit is what the stadium used to be called by the fans. It was never, I guess, official on any stationery or anything like that. But among the fan base, it was commonly referred to when it was Carolina Stadium before the Williams and Bryce family jumped in with big money and the name went to them. It was referred to on the streets as the cockpit, just like, I don't know what they do at Florida. Do they put the swamp on their stationery and things of that nature?
Yes, they put welcome to the swamp or something like that.
Yeah, I know they have the signage. I know they have the signage on the facility. Clemson's got welcome to Death Valley on their place. I think LSU's got the same thing. There aren't too many stadiums that have real cool nicknames like that. And I think that South Carolina's missing a golden opportunity. But the problem you run into, of course, in today's world,
the nomenclature is a bit
risque. You got PETA, the thought of the concept of fighting, of two Gamecocks fighting in a pit to the death. That turns a lot of people off, things of that nature. However, you can go overboard with your sensitivity because Florida plays up when you go into a game at the Swamp. Part of their video presentation is that of a bunch of alligators swimming around in a swamp looking to eat you if you happen to wander in. So I don't think that's any kinder than it is the concept of, a couple of Gamecocks fighting to the death, which used to be, of course, it's still done illegally in our state.
Right.
And back in the, early part of last century, maybe before, it was a very popular thing to do. I guess I wasn't here. I've read stories about it. Personally, I see nothing wrong with the university supporting and promoting the nickname of the cockpit because it's cool, and coolness wins in college football today. Wouldn't you love to have the announcers on ESPN as they zoom in on a game and they have the overhead look and the fans are waving the towels and jumping up and down the sandstorm? They say, man, the cockpit is rocking tonight.
My favorite was I went to Nebraska. You ever been up there?
Once. Not for a game, but I've been in the stadium.
The intro video there, they used to do, I don't know if they still do it anymore, but they used to have a roll of Keith Jackson saying there's no place like Nebraska football at Memorial Stadium.
And then they cut to fans shucking corn.
Just crazy. It's crazy.
Are they shucking the corn?
They're not shucking, but they have the little corn, little head things. They look like cheese heads, but they're made by the same company. They're corn heads.
Stan, anything else, sir?
Yeah, right quick, 'cause I didn't want to stop a bunch of time. I wanted to thank you so much. I feel like we, even as Christian people, sometimes take things for granted. I'm thankful I'm still on a high from my Clemson football and how good Dabo has done, and they got the continuity with the coaches there and unity where a lot of them don't. But I appreciate you playing that last night to get to hear what the president did and how he gave them the props. I think that's great for you to do that. And back to that part, I don't know if you caught for the Golden Apple Award. They give a lot of teachers. I think you ought to receive the Golden Apple Award as the head talk show host. I don't know if you've ever received that. And
no, I haven't.
Not that I'm trying to put you ahead of Will, but I know you're shaping him and molding him. And he's doing a good job. And I wanted to thank you for that.
I think they broke the mold after they made me.
I think so. Yeah. Thank you very much. Just got confirmation from Dan Radakovich that we will have to call him tomorrow night. I'm not crazy about doing call-in interviews from the location where the person is actually located in the same place I am. However, his schedule, tomorrow night's an SC Wild night, so we will not have our 7:30 segment of the show for Sports Talk. We'll have it for SC Wild, which is great, but the only time he could be with us in person was at 7:30, so we'll call him at 6:30 tomorrow night.
And again, going back to what we opened the segment with Clemson, we really didn't find out anything from the folks at the Post and Courier with regards to the investigation into the Osterine, I'll still call it a scandal. Somebody balked at us calling it a scandal. It's a scandal.
That was the headline on the story.
It's a scandal.
Well, I think scandal is a bit strong, to be honest with you.
One is not a scandal. 2 is a trend. 3 is a scandal. That's 3.
Well,
There's
call
3
it what
guys.
you want. I don't think it's a scandal. 3 out of 19 who were tested, 19 out of 85 on scholarship. Let's see what happens. Let's just wait and find out the truth and see how this occurred.
My question is, why is it taken so long to find out the truth?
I don't know.
That's the curious thing.
The appeals process, it's an appeal. The appeal process for the players. Now, this is not the investigation part of it to find out
I know the appeal.
how it got into their system. The appeal process is ongoing. Clemson, according to Joe Gelbreth, speaking to the Post and Courier, he is Clemson's Associate VP for Strategic Communications. Clemson continues to evaluate all possible circumstances around how these tests ended up positive.
Now, I know why the appeal is taking forever. The appeal takes forever because that's the way those things go. But my question is, how could they not know? We're almost a month out from this. How can they not know?
I don't know.
I want to say it's irresponsible.
But you know what? You can ask Dan tomorrow night.
But it's just like, how do you not know?
You can ask him tomorrow night.
I will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a good question. And I think the response will be it takes time because they don't apparently have any, at least at this point, solid leads on how this happened if they're looking in the right places. Sometimes you don't find something because you don't look in the right place or you don't want to look in the right place. Assuming that this investigation is being handled properly and above board and they're looking in all the right places, they'll come up with an answer at some point.
I know that Gamecock fans have been still harping on that, and they're calling their championship illegitimate, which I'm not at that level. But if I'm a Clemson fan, I'm ticked off that this hasn't been figured out because you lost your best defensive line contributor for your 2 most important games, and
not your best. I mean, a cog, but not your best.
He's probably going to be the highest.
They didn't miss him.
They didn't miss him because they were able to cover his absence.
They didn't miss him because Albert Huggins is probably as good as any of the rest in terms of being a starter most anywhere else.
Just because
and can do the job.
They didn't miss him does not mean that he's not going to be the first guy off the board when Clemson's defensive line draft picks are taken.
Pro potential and what you do in college can really be 2 different things. I mean, but would you have said Christian Wilkins would be a bigger loss? I would think so, or maybe even Cleveland Farrell would be a bigger loss. Look at the numbers.
No, because you have Xavier Thomas.
Come on, man. Cleveland Farrell had 19 and a half sacks.
Xavier Thomas might break all the Cleveland Farrell records. I'm saying.
I kind of doubt it. I mean, he's good. Cleveland Farrell is special.
I'm not saying he's not. It's just because he's not special doesn't mean that they can't cover his loss. That
they did cover his loss.
I'm saying that the position is loaded. You're getting into a semantic discussion about whether or not the value of Dexter Lawrence would not have been felt by that defense. The point is, you lost somebody who was a key contributor of your defense last season, in the 2 most important games of the season, and you're losing a tight end at a position where you cannot afford to lose a position there because you're losing Mylan Richard, who wasn't necessarily a contributor for you this year, and you're losing Garrett Williams, who was a big blocking tight end, potentially with him going to the Army.
Well, first of all, Dexter Lawrence wasn't coming back anyway. Now, he was gone to the pros after this year, so it's not like because of this you're losing him.
But you
lose him for 2 games. You won those games handily. Your defense still shut down both opponents you faced without him. So I'm saying they didn't miss him on the field. They were able to cover up for his absence with their scheme and with their other veteran players and with their replacements.
I'm not saying
they did a great job.
I'm not saying they weren't able to cover his absence. I'm saying I'm still ticked if you're a Clemson fan that you don't have those players.
I mean, you want to have all your players, I'll give you that, and you don't want to have anything like this crop up. Nobody wants to have to deal with an NCAA enforced suspension because of failing a drug test. That's not a good look.
And here's the other thing that concerns me if you're a Clemson fan. If it's happened before and you don't know how it happened, guess what? It can happen again.
This is true. This is why they've got to find the source. They've got to be honest. They've got to be honest. They've got to be upfront, and they've got to be as astute as possible at trying to come up with the answer and be forthcoming.
And it's why it concerns me that we haven't found out the reason by now.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Are you into the championship games this weekend? I know you're not.
Yes, I will. In particular, Kansas City, because I love it when it's like 0 degrees.
Arctic blast they're going to get.
Loving it.
You know, I'm loving the fact that I'll be in New Orleans during that game between the Saints and Rams. And I was in New Orleans for a Sunday, I don't know if it was a playoff game or it was something. It was a late season NFL game. It was Saints Falcons, and being on the streets of New Orleans, especially in the French Quarter, during a home Saints NFL game, it's like a street party. It's awesome.
All right, 800-956-7266. I promise back to your calls in a moment. A couple of other notes I want to pass along to you. Another honor for Trevor Lawrence. Touchdown Club Columbus announced that he has earned the Archie Griffin Award, given to college football's most valuable player after the bowl season. Wonder if he will match. Some people think he's going to win the Heisman. The odds, according to Bet Online, the odds for the 2019 Heisman, Lawrence is 3-1. Tagovailoa is 4-1. Jalen Hurts is 9-1. Got a bunch in there at 12-1, including Travis Etienne. So he will go into the season, Lawrence will, as the favorite to win the Heisman, something that Clemson, of course, has never had a Heisman Trophy winner. Jerry Palms, his latest bracketology. Yes, sir?
They do have an academic Heisman.
Okay.
Christian Wilkins. They get the academic Heisman.
Gotcha. Not the same thing.
Not the same.
You don't get a statue for that. Latest bracketology from Jerry Palm. Wofford, a number 12 seed against Florida State in Hartford for the Columbia venue. Virginia, number 1 seed against Sam Houston. Purdue against Mississippi State. Tennessee, a number 1 seed against Weber State. And Iowa against TCU.
Interesting.
You need an ACC team. You do have Virginia. I'm sorry. You need a North Carolina ACC team in Columbia.
Here's the issue.
You got to have the Tar Heels. You got to have the Blue Devils. You got to have the Wolfpack. Somebody from the Tar Heel State needs to be in Columbia.
While the bracketology folks always kind of get the order right, the host site situations don't always line up anywhere close to what they
right. And they're going to move people around.
Yeah. It's all.
I remember watching Clemson last year and South Carolina the year before. One week they were in Salt Lake City. The next week they were in Wichita. The next week they were in Orlando.
We thought Clemson was going to be somewhere in the Midwest, and they ended up all the way in San Diego last year.
And a couple of notes from the Citadel football coach. Brent Thompson announces the hiring of Tony Grantham as his new defensive coordinator. He was outside linebackers coach at Navy last season. He replaces Blake Harrell, who left to become the DC at Kennesaw State. Also, boy, we are getting old. Turner West is the new special teams coordinator and recruiting coordinator, and he spent last season as linebackers coach at Austin Peay. Before that, 4 seasons as a defensive assistant with the Cowboys of Dallas. And if that name sounds somewhat familiar to you, he is the son of former Clemson assistant, former Clemson head coach, former USC assistant coach, Tommy West. So little old Turner West, old enough to be coaching in the NFL and in college.
He's not little anymore.
No, he's not. All right, 800-956-7266. Recruiting coming up for you here in a little bit, but we promise more of your phone calls, and we do that with Billy in Somerville. Hello, Billy. Welcome into Sports Talk. How you doing?
Yeah, good. How y'all doing tonight?
We're good.
I got an NFL question since it's playoffs, and I'm going to give my 2 cents on the full question. With the playoffs coming up this weekend, as much as I would love to see a Kansas City LA Ram matchup, just for it to be something different, though, my gut feeling is telling me, and I can't go against it. I got a bad feeling Brady and New England's going to go up there and do it again just to prove a point, and just the fact that I believe he hadn't won on the road yet. And how do you feel about that? Do you think there's a good chance of that they're going, or do you think Kansas City will pull through?
Okay, you were breaking up really badly. I think you were talking about the Rams and the Saints.
He was asking about whether or not Tom Brady could go on the road and win in Kansas City.
I'm going with Kansas City.
Really?
Yeah, I am. The home field. Of course, you got 2 really hot quarterbacks, no question about it. But listen, there's a reason why the Patriots, when they're away from home, outside of the Super Bowl being a neutral field, They don't do so well.
Mm.
What that reason is, I don't know, but there must be a reason. And they're stepping into a very difficult place against a very good team. Now, some people say, well, Andy Reid will find a way to screw it up, and maybe he will. I don't know. But I'm still going to go with the Chiefs. They've had a great year. I see no reason why they will stumble on Sunday against the Patriots.
I am a believer in the Bill Belichick tactical abilities more than probably anybody on the face of the earth. I don't bet against him. So much of what the Patriots do is week by week, and they change their game plan massively to fit the team that they are playing. I feel like they will have something for Kansas City. And not only that, I feel like a lot of what we saw last week against the LA Chargers can certainly be carried into next week, because one thing that Kansas City does not have is a very good defense.
Of the 30 non-Super Bowl playoff games in the Belichick-Brady era, 23 have been played in Foxborough, 7 on the road. Sunday's game will be the 7th. Pats are 20-3 at home. Obviously very hard to beat at home. On the road, let's see, they beat the Steelers in the AFC Championship game in 2001. In 2004, they beat the Steelers again. In 2005, they lost to the Broncos. In 2006, they beat the Chargers. And then again in 2006, they lost to the Colts. In 2013, they lost to the Broncos. In 2015, they lost to the Broncos.
And most of those were with Peyton Manning.
And that's it. I think that was the last one. Yeah, I'm with you. It's hard to pick against the Patriots, but I want to. I like to. They're on the road. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. One more question, sir?
Yeah, the other one was the poll question. I've got a couple Carolina friends of mine that are like twice my age, and they said that we just need to change the name completely because they feel like the chicken curse is the name of the school. And joking around, he was trying to come up with ideas like today, like, well, what can we change the name to? And he came up with the idea of, let's just change it to the name to the Laughing Hyenas and just start all over again, because he's been a Carolina fan for 60 years, and when he said that, I about to start and fell out my chair, and that's what I feel like. I just think when you really get the name same as far as it goes, not change anything. We just have to get something there that's consistent, because after 100 years, we haven't had anything consistent, and I'll hang up and listen later.
Well, what's been consistent over 100 and something years has been the inconsistency. If you can find some consistency, that'd be good. And maybe you'll find it here under Muschamp. But, South Carolina, winning cures everything, as I was talking to an administrator yesterday. Winning cures everything. When they were winning those games under Spurrier, it didn't matter what you called them. People were happy.
But
they say, what they say, when you're winning, the cheerleaders look prettier, the band plays better, the fans are more into it, and that's true. That's true everywhere.
Well, here's the other thing, too, is that your brand takes on the personality of your head coach if you win enough. I mean, Clemson's brand has taken on the face of Dabo Swinney, Saban at Alabama, and even to a lesser degree, Spurrier at South Carolina.
And let's face it, for all the good things that Muschamp has about him, he's not charismatic.
No.
And he's not going to charm you. He's not going to stand up in front of a crowd of people and give a sermon and have you, tearing up.
He's not a baby kisser
over his life story and things of that nature. No, he's not. And you know what? That's probably in this day and age not a good thing.
Nope.
Being just an X's and O's guy and trying to explain, why your secondary broke down because, your guys didn't have their eyes in the right place or he took the wrong angle. That's great in the meeting room. Doesn't come across great in the media.
Not as important at the pro level, but when it comes to having to impress people, when it comes to donors, recruits, casual fans, and the like, it's much more needed at the collegiate level.
He could, if he could self-assess or somebody sit him down and self-assess, it might be, hey, you know what? In public settings, in your press conferences,
chill.
You might need to lighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got the Saban stuff in him, but the difference is that he doesn't have the rings. He doesn't have the cachet. And if he did, he could get away with it. And maybe one day he will, but until he does, he comes in a far second to the man up the road who's got people literally eating out of his hands right now. Top of the hour break.
Big Macs and Whoppers and Junior Bacon Cheeseburgers.
Top of the hour break. Recruiting is coming up. More of your phone calls. We'll be back.
Most people think
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back. Hour number 2, Sports Talk. All across the state of South Carolina, your final word in sports. We bring it to you every night, 6 to 8, unlike anybody else in the state of South Carolina. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com. On Twitter, at SportsTalkSC. Don't forget, if you miss a show, bless you, Brian. I think that went all over the state.
I said that was very loud.
Everybody cover up. Their germs heading your way right now. Anyway, as I was about to say, if you miss a show, we put our show on a Twitter in a podcast form for you. That's a great way to get us. Also, our live Periscope live during the show is available for you after the show. You can go back and watch it, or our feed on YouTube, our YouTube channel, Sports Talk SC on YouTube. You can watch it there. So if you miss a show, those are how you can go back and catch it.
We have no shortage of ways you can stalk us.
Correct. And we appreciate that. We love the stalking. We love your emails. In fact, I've got some emails that we need to get to here at some point in time.
Oh, God.
And more Twitter comments.
Oh, God.
In the meantime, let's go to...
The emails always bode better for you than they do for me.
Well, that's because people love me.
That's not true.
That's just as simple as that.
That's not true. People
like our next caller. Our next caller is a big fan. Short guy, but a big fan. Bulldog Bert, still hoping, that just because, you look good in that loss to Alabama in the SEC championship game, and you look good in your bowl loss. I still think because you look good, you should have been in the playoff, just because you look good in those defeats. Because losing doesn't really matter.
You mean
in the world of Kirk Herbstreit?
You mean, Bert, you didn't join Justin Fields up at Ohio State or the mass exodus? Everybody else leaving Athens? That's not you.
Well, I must be looking good because of shampoo I'm using.
Pantene. You and Trevor both.
I'm hoping that y'all gonna get to the bottom of it, so I know if my shampoo is safe enough, so I won't fail the drug test at work.
Based on what I've seen of your hair in person, I think there's no chemicals in your shampoo that could create any sort of a positive drug test.
Is he getting the $5 special at Great Clips too?
I don't think Suave has ever been accused of putting chemicals in their shampoo that can harm you.
I want y'all to get me a defensive coordinator. Who's it going to be?
Me. Guess what, Bert? It's you.
Are y'all still looking? You're still looking?
6 weeks in, no defensive coordinator.
I hear Lance Thompson's available.
Well, it's probably going to be a within work, what I'm suspecting. Is that what you suspected, Phil?
Well, first of all, let's face it. Kirby runs that defense, does he not?
Yes.
Okay, so whoever you hire has to understand that he'll be the defensive coordinator. He'll be paid well, but, Kirby's going to have the final call on the defense.
They're saying expect a promotion from within and somebody who can be just basically Kirby's yes man, I would say.
Of course, yes.
How you feeling about next year?
Feel very good. We're going to be a little deeper, and I hope we can get past Alabama again. That's always our goal, and of course, but I don't think that's going to pose a challenge.
You've got an improving Florida. You've got an always steady South Carolina. You got to deal with, huh? You got Tennessee. Who you playing from the other side?
That's schedule, Phil.
Besides Auburn, who you playing on the other side?
Auburn, and I think they're playing. Are we playing Arkansas?
Auburn and A&M is
A&M, yeah. That shouldn't be too hard of a feat there.
Well,
you get A&M at home, and you also have in the non-conference, you have Notre Dame.
But you know what? You got to go to Nashville.
Notre Dame.
To open it up. You got to go to Vanderbilt. Then you got Murray State and Arkansas State, and then Notre Dame comes to your place. I see some potential areas for disaster there for the Bulldogs.
Plus, at Tennessee, you don't,
and you don't have the luxury of the great backup quarterback anymore. Better hope the number one guy doesn't get hurt.
Well, Notre Dame and A&M don't have any live mascots, so we ought to win that.
Boy, that would have been funny.
I'd have laughed.
If what number Uga was that? He'd have been Uga smashed if Bevo would have gotten a hold of him.
He'd have been Uga dinner.
That's true. You know what? PETA was not happy about that. They don't believe you should be treating your dogs that way.
Having seen
that was after the game.
Having seen both of those in person, There's no more imposing mascot than Bevo.
I mean, I think a Bulldog, Bert, that it was abuse of the Bulldogs what happened in that bowl game, and you guys should not put yourself in that situation again.
But I'm no more scared of anybody than Ralphie.
Yeah,
at Colorado.
Ralphie's pretty scary.
You don't want
anything else, Bert?
You don't want to be in the way of that.
Any
guy.
other? Hey, by the way, you got to play Georgia Tech in Atlanta with their new coaching staff. Look out! No more triple option.
That's going to be really hard, but y'all get to the bottom of the shampoo gate tomorrow when you go to Clemson and talk to Daddy Dan.
The shampoo is not the problem. It's Dexter Lawrence doesn't have any hair.
You never know where it's coming from.
Trevor's the one with the hair.
We will conduct an internal investigation.
I'm still telling you.
Tomorrow.
I want to say it's those salt tablets.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your call. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Let's give you the recruiting report for tonight. E.J. Williams from Phoenix City, Alabama, another top-rated player in that state, one of the top receivers in the country in the 2020 class, and Clemson has already positioned itself nicely with him. He said that Jeff Scott is the coach he has the strongest relationship with, and they've told him that he could come in and make an immediate impact, much like his buddy Justin Ross did. They like him for the boundary receiver, or what they call the 9-man. He attended 2 home games this season. He was in for a visit last weekend. Says he always gets the same vibe from Clemson. They treat him very well. He says they do not put on airs there, and he likes that. And he's kept in touch with his good friend Ross and heard good things from him. He said that when Justin Ross was coming out of high school, he said, I did not think he'd go for 1,000 yards his freshman year and have the most receiving yards on the team. So he equates that to how they develop their receivers at Clemson. All that is good from a Clemson standpoint. He's also been to Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State, and Florida, going to Georgia this weekend, back to Clemson on the 26th. And he plans to visit Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Florida State, and Florida again in the coming weeks. He'll not announce until the December signing date. 40 catches, 368 yards, and 9 touchdowns this season. Rome, Georgia coach John Reed said his running back, famous Jameis Griffin, I just added the famous part,
Really?
is not planning a visit to USC. That had been suggested by some. He said former running backs coach Bobby Bentley called, but Griffin is still firm with NC State, a commitment there. However, he is visiting other places. Clemson came through last month, but nothing more with the Tigers. He has been to State. He was at Auburn this past weekend. He's been to Georgia Tech. The coach said that Griffin might not take any more visits, but if he does, Miami might get one. Alabama coach Nick Saban was at the school today, as were coaches from Michigan State, Colorado State, and Mississippi State. Griffin rushed for 2,800 yards and 28 touchdowns this season. Cornerback Shiloh Sanders of Cedar Hill, Texas, told us last night he did not make it to Tennessee as was scheduled this past weekend. It was canceled. It won't be rescheduled. He has taken officials to USC and Colorado State. No other visits are scheduled at this point. He said the Gamecocks remain in contact. He said they are recruiting for sure. Everything is pretty much the same. I definitely like South Carolina for sure, but I like every school. Florida State and Michigan State were 2 others Sanders had on his short list. He'll make his commitment announcement before the signing day of February 6th. 2020 receiver Jalen Hyde of Dutch Fork was offered by Wake Forest. What USC and Clemson are waiting on with this cat is beyond me. Of course, Clemson always feels like they can get better receivers, but this guy's really good. Clemson USC target linebacker Kevin Swint was offered by Kentucky. Clemson target tight end Lucas Unger was offered by Penn State. 2020 defensive back Luke Hill plans to visit Clemson on the 26th. 2020 defensive back Jaden Dennis of Charlotte plans to visit USC this weekend. Also visiting Clemson on the 26th, defensive end Brian Bressie, receiver Julian Fleming. 2020 receiver Daquan Stewart of Huntersville, North Carolina, will visit USC on Saturday. Hit a break. We'll be back.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. I still can't get over that Furman Wofford this weekend is going to be so.
Well, cancel your plans on going to New Orleans and go to the game if you want to be there so badly.
I wouldn't say it's going to be that good.
It's going to be a heck of a game. It's just good to see in-state rivals get after it.
And this is one that means something. This could be, I mean, we're talking, I don't want to say it's necessarily NCAA tournament implications, but I mean, you know, I think the winner of this conference comes with one of those two schools. Well,
I think that the SoCon could get two. Wofford is 6-0 in the league, 14-4 overall. Furman is 4-2 in the league, 15-3 overall.
I don't know if they can get more than one in that.
East Tennessee is 5-1 in the league, 15-4 overall, and has won 7 in a row.
Wofford's 40 in Ken Pop.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah. What is Furman? Furman's like 90-something?
90-something. Yeah. Their problem is, here's the thing I told you, their luck thing. Their luck thing was very, very high for the longest time. And here's the problem with them. When they lose SoCon games, that's going to really downturn a lot of their at-large value.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Wofford keeps winning in the league is helping them.
800-956-7266. Got time for more of your phone calls here on Sports Talk. Let's update some of the ongoing basketball games. Mississippi State out in front of Florida, 13-12. Boy, if Florida continues to struggle, the heat's going to turn up on Mike White here pretty soon.
I don't know if I don't know if it'll be fire, but there'll be some.
They're too talented to be struggling like they are. Do they have any major injuries I don't know of? Are they missing some key elements? Tennessee is up on Arkansas 8 minutes in, 20-6.
Dude, you want to talk about where the heat is? That guy, Arkansas. Mike Anderson has not become the savior that people thought he would be.
Which surprises me because I thought he was a heck of a coach, and I thought this was the perfect fit for him. Just watching him, I liked his coaching style.
Strongly disagree.
Kentucky leading. He was at Mizzou, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah.
I strongly disagree. He was a terrible game plan coach.
Kentucky with a 18-15 lead in Athens, about halfway through the first half there. And that is it. Looking forward to that Virginia Tech-Virginia game. Virginia's a 7.5-point favorite at home.
A player who played for Mike Anderson, who will remain nameless, said that Mike Anderson would not look at a damn bit of film.
Why didn't they give him a name?
No, I'm not giving you his name.
Duh.
Somebody who played professional basketball.
I get it. You didn't catch the joke. I was
he,
like, well, Mr. Know Everything smart guy from Missouri didn't get the joke.
It was funny. No, I
thought it was funny. Brian, do you think it was funny?
He would not.
Brian looked up.
Look at a bit of film. All they would do was run their system. They would basically scrimmage 2 hours a day. They would not look at a darn bit of skull session on anybody. They were so implemented in thinking that their 40 minutes of hell system would win out and win over, and they did no game planning for any opposition. And that told me once and for all that he is just a stubborn, not good basketball coach.
Can I say one thing, not to get into politics, but people who are criticizing Trump over last night.
Oh, this is stupid.
Just need to go on vacation somewhere.
Absolutely stupid.
Really, people. And I'm not sitting here saying you got to love Trump or agree with anything he's done. This is a
non-political statement. This is absolutely stupid.
Can I just finish for a second? Then you can say your thing.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Get off his back over this. I mean, if he had served filet mignon, you'd be criticizing him for breaking the budget. So he goes out and he does something humorous, something he can have fun with. And apparently the team enjoyed it and everybody's happy except all the pundits who have to continue to try to make a name for themselves by finding something to criticize. It's just ridiculous. Now go ahead.
I find that ironic that Clemson is used as a political football with its football team. But I mean, the whole thing to me, again, it reeks of the fact that it's just people who don't like him. It's all it is they just don't like him for one way or another. And like you said, he would have been criticized for doing anything for them.
To those people, if somehow, some way Trump came up with a cure for cancer, they'd criticize him for not coming up with a cure for diabetes.
Well, here's the other thing, too.
It's ridiculous.
People were criticizing him for the timing of it, saying that he was using the football team to politicize things and the fact that he's lonely at the White House and stuff like that. Although
lonely at the top.
I did realize that
I can testify to that.
I did realize that not all the team showed up there last night. There were some people who did not show up last night, including Isaiah Simmons, who put out that little tweet about his return. That tweet was geotagged to Clemson, South Carolina. He was not there.
Well, I don't think it's mandatory that you have to go, and I think that when it comes to these college teams, you look at the pictures. I don't think the football teams take every member of the football team to the White House because some guys have graduated and moved on, started their NFL stuff. Some don't want to go. Some have, to me, I don't care what your political preference happens to be. You get an invitation to go to the White House, you go.
I would have loved.
I mean, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
And
you think, in Clemson's case, for some guys, it's a twice-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I look at it from the standpoint of this. You get a chance to tell your grandkids that not only did you get to go to the White House, but you got to eat McDonald's fries out of White House chalices in the East Room of the White House, paid for by the President of the United States. I think it's pretty cool. And it also made me.
Is that the same thing as a plate?
No, the chalice. It was in the cups. The chalices. It had it in like with the seal of the presidency
of the White House.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's where they put the fries.
Nice. Anybody slip one into their pocket and take it home? You think?
I don't know, but they all
they kept a counting of how many chalices were there to hold the French fries.
They all got selfies inside the. Who was the guy who got in trouble with the picture in the White House bathroom? Who was that?
I don't do bathrooms.
No, that was somebody. That was a coach. That was. Oh my goodness.
Oh! The guy from
Ohio State.
Ohio State. Day.
Yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't. It wasn't.
It was Day.
Was it?
No,
Day?
no,
Not
Day. Day's
the new. I know who you're talking about.
The deadbeat. The deadbeat with his wife. The Ohio State disgraced assistant.
Yeah. Was it Kevin something? Yeah, I know who you're talking about. And Tom Herman. Wasn't he and Tom Herman
Zach
involved
Smith
with that?
is his name.
Wasn't it?
Zach Smith.
Wasn't Tom Herman part of that? Didn't he send the text to Tom Herman or something? It was something.
Tom Herman was going back and forth with him about.
Yeah.
I guess Herman was talking crap about him, and apparently they were both at a strip club, and Herman wasn't necessarily standing up for him, and he put the text back and was like, "Okay, cool, hook him."
All right, coming up in a couple of moments, we're going to hear from Brad Brownell, his thoughts on the Tigers' upcoming game against Georgia Tech. Also, Frank Martin on the upcoming game against Vanderbilt. That should be a really good test for the Gamecocks because, on the one hand, their expectations are now high after a 3-0 start. And on the other hand, Vanderbilt's at home, haven't won a league game. They certainly look at this game as winnable. They're going to be hungry, and they're going to come out and give it a great effort. South Carolina, besides all the little things you have to do, they're going to come out and match Vanderbilt's effort. If they don't match Vanderbilt's effort and Vandy plays well, could be a tough night for South Carolina. They can win this game. If they can get this game on the road, 4-0, a quarter of the way through a fourth of the way. Was it 16 games?
18.
Almost. Okay. That would be
18 games.
They're sixth of the way into it right now. So they get to 4-0. That's a pretty good start. No matter how
math
work it out math-wise.
Math was never a stalwart. These are the
that would be a heck of a start for South Carolina. And you look at what's ahead for them schedule-wise. Now they got to go to LSU coming up.
Auburn. They have a long stretch here with Auburn. The road game at Oklahoma State,
Tennessee. Yeah, it gets really tough.
Georgia, Kentucky. These are not gimmies.
At Kentucky,
you should beat Arkansas.
Let's look. Let's just look. Let's just say.
Are you gonna play the win-loss game here with me now?
Well, they're 3-0 right now. Okay, let's give them a win at Vandy.
4-0.
Be 4-0.
You lose at LSU.
I'm not going to say LSU.
You lose at LSU.
And then Auburn at home should be a heck of a game. That should be if they can come back to Columbia no worse than 4-1. I think the place will be energized and up for grabs. That's going to be is that a Tuesday night game, the 22nd at 6:30?
Yes.
One of those early tips.
Early tip.
That could hurt the attendance there some. That's just a bad time for Columbia. They've got back-to-back. The next two home games will be Tuesday night 6:30 tips, Auburn and Tennessee. That really sucks for them.
Yes.
Two top 10 teams. You got to play them at 6:30 in the evening there.
And then you got to go road Georgia and Kentucky. That's a tough double, and then home for Arkansas.
That's winnable.
Road
Texas A&M is winnable. Ole Miss at home's winnable. You know, if they don't stub their toe at home against some of these less than top 10, top 15 teams, they could end up around 8 or 9 league wins.
That's the thing. You need to get what we would call a signature win. I don't think they have that yet.
All right, we'll come back and hear from Brad Brunell and Frank Martin here on Sports Talk.
We were just talking during the break here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. The weekend of Clemson, South Carolina baseball, we told you that those game times have been released for that weekend, 6, 1, and 1, respectively, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday, 6 o'clock at Clemson, 1 o'clock Fluor Field in Greenville, and 1 o'clock at Founders Park. But that same Saturday, when Clemson and South Carolina play their neutral site contest in Greenville, it's the same day as Clemson's home basketball game against North Carolina. A lone chance that they get to see the Tar Heels this season. And that game time has not yet been released by the ACC and its television partners. They're looking at either a 4 or 4:30, I believe, tip time, or 6 o'clock. Of course, a lot of Clemson fans who would try to do both would hope for that later tip time.
I would agree. I'd like to be able to see both. In fact, I plan to see both.
That's hard.
Somehow, some way.
That's hard.
Of course, the baseball game would have to move quickly and not go extra innings and things of that nature. And the 6 o'clock tip would be beneficial.
With the way Monty Lee changes pitchers, hardly hardly something that
we'll be up at Clemson tomorrow, and hopefully Monty will be with us to preview baseball. We'll do the same thing with Mark Kingston over here. We'll do the same thing with Gary Gilmore down at Coastal. Coastal and Clemson both ranked in the preseason polls. USC is not ranked in the preseason polls, but they'll have a chance to prove themselves. Not many people thought when they lost that game to Presbyterian last year and fell to 17-13 through 30 games that they would do anything, and they managed to get within a game of Omaha last year. All right, basketball tomorrow night at Clemson. Be late. Got to put your pajamas on and watch this one if you're not going to be at the ball game. Clemson and Georgia Tech at 9 o'clock.
Should be an interesting contest between the Tigers and the Yellow Jackets. It's weird kind of the way the season has gone for Georgia Tech. They've been very up and down. They have got themselves a victory already in the conference over Syracuse, team that, of course, had its victory over Duke last night. They beat Wake Forest, lost to Virginia Tech, who's highly ranked. They sit 2-1 in the league. Clemson looking for its first victory, and Brad Brownell says the Yellow Jackets come in with a lot of confidence.
Georgia Tech's playing really well. They've played really well after Christmas. I think they've maybe 4-1. Certainly coming off a great win at Syracuse. I just feel like Alvarado is certainly a guy who controls tempo for him and is a very confident player at the point. The addition of James Banks has really helped their team. Being able to have another guy inside. He was a big-time recruit out of high school, and he's shown this year he's got 10 or 11 points and 8 rebounds and 3 blocks. That he just anchors their defense. Very good in pick and rolls, and then also in their zone. So their defense has been outstanding, and they just kind of gotten some confidence here lately. Obviously had a great chance to beat Virginia Tech in the game that they lost. Had a layup to take the lead with less than a minute to go. So I feel like we're playing a team that's coming in with a lot of confidence and playing well, and we're going to have to execute at a high level to win.
Outside the 0-3 start in the ACC overall this season, are you hitting the goals and some of the earmarks that you set for the team?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a tough year in certain situations, just in that Eli starts the year with a sprained ankle, and he's fine now. And Shelton, I don't think is, I think his knee is probably bothering him more than than he would want to let on. But so he probably isn't, doesn't quite have the juice that we hoped. And then Marquise has obviously had a knee injury and been out. So it's a little bit hard when your 3 best players have all been battling different things. And it's not something that we would have liked or hoped for. I do think in the non-conference, it was going to be hard to beat Mississippi State without Marquise. But, obviously the Creighton and Nebraska losses were games we had chances to win. And, we just didn't play well enough to finish the Nebraska one, especially. That one probably stings a little bit more because it was at home. And, it's a game we feel like we should have finished. Creighton was tough, 3 games in 3 days. I thought we wore down, and their style was a little bit hard for us in that short of prep. We just didn't play well enough. Having said that, we haven't had bad losses. I mean, we've beaten what looks to be, I told everybody that South Carolina would play better, and they're playing very well right now. And so that looks like a very good win. And we beat a solid Georgia team in the tournament. We beat some good teams, Radford and Lipscomb, who are both very good teams that could be in the NCAA tournament. So I think we're a team that has done some okay things. I think we just all hope that we'd be doing a little bit better. And, we've just got to keep our head down and keep working and try to stay positive and get through this. There's going to be weeks like this in the league. I mean, it's a very difficult league with a lot of really good teams, and most teams are going to go through a tough patch, and hopefully we're going to get ours out of the way if we can get something going here.
And one thing about Georgia Tech, the fact that they went up to Syracuse and won should tell you something about what they're capable of. This should be a low-scoring game. Both of these teams play pretty good defense. Georgia Tech's not a high-scoring team, averaging 71 points per game. Their defensive average is 62 points, which is fourth in the ACC. You know, Clemson, for the most part, plays good defense. So this will be a game where possessions will be at a premium and protecting the basketball and, trying to make some shots. Clemson, and Brad Brownell, coming off a Sweet 16 season, a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm going into this year for the team, a very good schedule. And they got off to the good start, broke into the national rankings, moved up in the national rankings as they were winning some games. Then they had the injury bug hit them. They lose some games. They drop out of the rankings, and they get to ACC play. They seem to, after Marquise Reed came back against South Carolina and played so well, they put together a little winning streak to close out the year. But then, the schedule at Duke, at Syracuse, and Virginia, I mean, that's tough in anybody's league. And they just weren't up to the challenge in those particular cases, and they lost all three of those games, and they weren't really close games. Virginia was a 2-point game until Virginia exploded, ended up winning by 20. So this game is huge because, as you pointed out, they lose tomorrow night. That's 0-4. They're staring 0-6 straight in the face to open league play.
Well, here's the other part of this, too, from where they sit. And Brad said it. I mean, none of these losses are "quote unquote" bad losses. They don't have a Wyoming or a Stony Brook on their slate as part of their use the word resume. If we're talking about the
Frank Martin will argue that Stony Brook is a good team.
Stony Brook plays in the America East corner.
Yeah, but I mean, somebody's got to play up there. But what does Ken Palm tell you?
Stony Brook plays in the America East corner. It's a one-bid league. You're not supposed to lose to one-bid leagues at home.
Lost to Wofford. Wofford's very good. They're probably in a one-bid league.
Wofford is a team that could be in the top 25. It should be in the top 25. That's different.
Furman was out of the SoCon.
The point that I'm trying to make here from the standpoint of where Clemson sits is they do not have a bad loss on their resume. And the first three are probably the toughest three outside of maybe North Carolina that you could possibly play. You're probably one of the toughest places to play in the league in Duke, one of the 2 or 3 toughest places to play in the league in Syracuse, and one of the best defensive teams in the country in Virginia coming into your building. So you have to beat Georgia Tech. I think because of the way you've played these first 3, you have to steal one of the 2 between Florida State and NC State. You beat Pittsburgh and Wake coming back at home, and then the season looks a little bit more tenable. You have Georgia Tech on the road, and then you have Virginia Tech at home. That's the one game where, because of the way that your league has broken, that is the game you have to circle on Saturday, February 9th, and say you have to win this game or you're not going to the tournament unless you make a big run in Charlotte.
Tigers averaging 71 points per game, giving up 67 points per game, and they're shooting it pretty well, 46% from the field, but you know what? They're not shooting it as well as you might have thought from three-point range. They're only at 30%, and, Marquise Reed gets a bit of a pass here because of the knee. He's only, from a three-point range, he's only made 17 threes. He's 17 of 57.
And that's the thing with the schedule that they have left and where they sit. Virginia Tech and North Carolina are going to be their only home games against teams that are currently ranked on the top 25. So those are your only opportunities for what you would call quote-unquote signature wins. Outside of that, the rest is on the road, which is tough, and games that are not going to get you the much traction with the NCAA Tournament Committee.
The other thing that's going to hurt them as they move on through the season, they have a very short bench.
They don't, and they do not getting the kind of contributions from the freshmen and newcomers that they thought they would get. Nothing from Javen White, nothing from John Newman or Hunter Tyson, and they're not getting the kind of progression out of Amir Sims or Clyde Trapp that they expected to get.
All right, we'll hear from Frank Martin on Vanderbilt in a moment. Kentucky up on Georgia late in the half, 33-31.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Yeah, and kind of going back to close the book on what we were talking about with Clemson, just the shooting numbers are not where they were last year, not where they thought they would be at the beginning of this year, which I think if we all thought where Clemson was going to be, probably didn't have as very high hopes for them offensively as they would, but they've not even met those short expectations.
Yeah, what you're having right now, several guys at the same time not shooting it well.
Cold.
And really, the only guy, of course, Reed you expected to be very good, and he has delivered for the most part. Elijah Thomas has been pretty good. Amir Sims is the one guy who has stepped his game up big time. He's averaging 9 points per game. I know David Scarra has given him more offense as well, but if David Scarra has to become a main offensive contributor for you, I mean, he would be better coming off the bench if you had somebody who was better to play in that number 5 position.
But he's so great defensively that you can't sit him.
But offensively, for a team right now that's offensively starving, you need somebody that can score. And Clyde Trapp's not going to get it done for you.
They do not have a microwave man
in many minutes. So they've got some issues. We'll see if they can. But a win can solve a lot of issues. We'll see if the Tigers can get that done tomorrow night. South Carolina goes on the road trying to get to 4-0 against Vanderbilt. Always a tough place to play. Memorial Gymnasium, right there in Nashville, a place that was built for operas and orchestras and things of that nature, not for basketball, but it seats 15,000, 16,000. And when Vandy's going well and the place is packed, it is a very difficult place to play. Now, maybe tomorrow night with an 0-3 league team, fans won't turn out in such huge numbers, and maybe electricity won't be so great, and South Carolina can take advantage. All that means nothing to Frank Martin when it comes to getting ready for this Vandy team.
I know you guys don't want to hear this because I guess they're 0-2 in league play or something like that. So everyone wants to write like Vanderbilt's not very good. Arizona State has beaten Kansas 2 years in a row. Okay, 2 years in a row. They went in there. Vandy beat them 20-17 to be exact. But that's it's the old SEC mentality that because you don't win a game in league play, you're not very good. At least it's the rhetoric that we create within our own league. They're young, but they're really good. They're fast. They're athletic. At home, they shoot it. They're pretty good. I like their team. I know when I tell you I sat and stared at the ceiling last night. It's not because we didn't run a back pick the right way yesterday. It's because I started watching Vanderbilt yesterday, and I was like, "Jeez."
Frank, you talk about Vanderbilt's roster makeup. They've got a lot of new faces in important roles. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen from Chateau and Neesmith so far?
Yeah, it's their point guard Lee. Since we're I can't help myself, Phil. Since we're so consumed with football, it's Amp Lee's son. And he is a jet with the ball. Like he was playing real well last year as a freshman, and then conference play started. He got kind of, I don't want to say swallowed up, but like all freshmen, just conference plays hard. But he is, holy cow, is he fast with that ball. And he's aggressive. He plays downhill. And then now they got, Simi, who's or Shimmy, he plays like a point center. Like he's the one bringing the ball up the court at 6'9", 6'10", making decisions in the open court. When they're running, I'm talking about, which puts an unbelievable pressure on your defense because who's taught to stop the ball in the open court? Your guards. But their 6'10" guys are the one that's bringing it up the court while everyone runs. Neesmith, who obviously from Charleston, won a bunch of state championships at Porter Gaud for my friend John Pearson, who we recruited pretty hard, is really, really coming on. Early in the year, it was kind of a little up and down based on what I saw, but he's been in the starting lineup now as of late, and really, really, he plays with a toughness and aggressiveness. Everyone spoke about his scoring ability. When I was recruiting him, I talked to him about his ability to defend and rebound. And he's doing that really well right now. He plays with an aggression and strength, the ball, or he's flying down the court. You got Toy, who's I believe he's a fifth-year senior. He's flying down the court. And then you got, I can't remember the transfer from Notre Dame, who shoots a cover off the ball. So now he's trailing. So you get sucked down trying to collapse to protect all these guys attacking the rim. And now he just shows up and bang. And they put unbelievable pressure on your transition defense. But they're good. They're good. If you would have watched him on film when they had Garland, holy cow. Wow. That's unfortunate what happened to that young man because he's special. And but they're a good team. They really are.
Okay, Frank Martin talking about the matchup tomorrow night. That will be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip, right? 7 o'clock Eastern in Nashville. I believe it is. I think it's 7 o'clock Eastern. Well, I can tell you right now. I've got it right here. Yeah, 6 o'clock local, 7 o'clock Eastern.
If somebody hit me up on Twitter saying, quote, your team lost to Virginia. This is directed at me. Your team lost to Virginia in the Belk Bowl. Why are you giving Clemson such a hard time?
Yeah, why is that? Your team lost, so why are you doing that?
My team?
Your team.
I do not have a team.
Oh, quit trying to cover that up.
Staunch defender of the Gamecocks, Will Pelagic. When did that happen? That's
scary.
See, I know I've been called the Clemson homer by some people. I've never been called the Gamecock
say this in
homer.
the terms of the millennial who might understand me, or maybe the juvenile who wrote that? Can you do better than that by trying to attach either one of us to a team when you know damn well that we're not, and we're practically the only people in the media in this state who are not? Can you give us a better take? Is that a good word to use?
Very, very take.
Give us a better take than that.
If you really want to try to attach a team to me, my team lost to Oklahoma State in the Liberty Bowl. If you really want to try to attach me to a team, but I don't really give a damn about what that team does anymore.
MIZ.
Shut up.
James in Beach Island,
where there is no beach,
and there definitely is no island. Quit stealing my stuff.
Beach.
Okay, Jesus.
No beach.
Yeah, James.
No beach, no island, just a stoplight and a McDonald's. How you guys doing?
That's all you need to survive in this world.
I hear you. How you guys doing?
Good, man.
Can't
Good.
complain.
Good. Listen, I'm a big Clemson fan, but I enjoy your show.
Wait a minute. Wait. Why do you have to put a but in there? There should be you are a big Clemson fan and I enjoy your show.
And I enjoy your show. Okay, I'll
Thank
correct
you.
myself.
Yeah.
Okay, but I want to talk about this Osterling situation. I mean, and you say, well, we should be ticked off because we don't really know what's going on. Well, I mean, don't you think that the Clemson, the players that were involved and Clemson themselves deserve to leave no stone unturned? And don't you think these things kind of take time? I mean, so as long as the important people know what's going on, I don't really care as a fan.
But wouldn't you want your administration to be crowing about as loud as they could to anybody who could hear how this happened, if in fact it is true that this happened via accident?
I think you got to give them time.
Well,
I mean, this is not something you're going to. First of all, you got to get it right. You've got to be transparent. And
that's right.
I'm not defending anything here at all. I'm applying common sense. It takes time. I don't know what they're looking at. They might be trying to find the proverbial needle in a haystack. Somebody might be trying to cover something up. I don't know. I'm not convinced 100% yet that these three guys didn't take it with the full knowledge of what they were doing and somebody gave it to them. And if maybe that's what they're working on, then you're talking about some real serious stuff. I mean, I just find it odd that three guys who had the same kind of injury tested positive for the same stuff.
I still find it concerning that it's a month later and we don't know the full answer on that.
Wait a minute. I've not heard of no injury. That's news to me.
Yeah, all three were rehabbing similar foot type injuries.
Correct.
That's why some people are suggesting it has something to do with the rehab process and using a salt supplement in the baths and in the whirlpools and things of that nature.
Bath salts, not baths. I'm kidding.
You know what I'm talking about.
Well, now wait a minute now. That's some validity. There could be some validity.
Well, that's what they're checking into, and that's why it takes time. We got to go. Tomorrow night from Clemson. We'll also be at Charleston Southern for the presser tomorrow, but live from Clemson. See you then.